Hey, this is Professor Seagraves. In a previous video on basic finance functions, we looked at how to calculate payments, annual payments, just multiplying those by 12, and coming up with an annual loan constant, just the proportion of a loan. For example, this $15,000 that would be paid off in a year. $15,000 is paid off in 1 year, each year of $100,000, then obviously the annual loan constant is going to be 15.86%. We also looked at an amortization schedule, how to start with a balance, calculate the payments, pieces of the payment between interest and principal, and see that balance declining over the course of a couple of years. And if we wanted to look at the total interest and principal that were paid off in any 1 year, we could either sum up these interest payments, we could sum up these principal payments, or we could use the cumulative interest and the cumulative principal functions in Excel. To see the balance at the end of each period, we could also take a look at these balance figures. The balance at the beginning of the 12th month or after the 12th month, in the case here. We can also use some basic functions like present value to calculate the balance of a loan at any one period. And in this video, we're going to take a look at that present value function, as well as how to calculate a basic internal rate of return on a series of cash flows. So let's just quickly take a look at how to get the present value of a future set of payments, which is the same thing as the balance of a loan. It's just the basic present value function that you've learned in any basic introductory finance class. So let's take a look at how we would apply that here. Equals PV in Excel. And we're going to use our rate, and for this one we're using 10%, but we have monthly payments, so we're going to use the 0.1. We're going to divide that by 12. And the number of periods, in this case we're going to be looking at the number of periods left. So after the first year, we no longer have 120 payments. If we had a 10-year loan, we're going to have 12 payments less than that. So we're going to have the 120 minus the 12. And that's going to be, of course, 108. But we can just put the math in here. 120 minus 12. And the payment itself, we calculated that earlier, and that payment amount, and we'll just click on it here. It's $1,321. So we can see here that after 12 months, which would be the beginning of the 13th period, we have a balance of that loan of $93,865.82. And you see that's the same value that we calculate over here in our amortization schedule. So in order to get the total interest, the total principal, and the amount paid or the balance of a loan at any one point in time, we don't have to build an amortization schedule. We can just use these quick functions in Excel. And if we look down here after the 24th period, we would get the same thing down there. And all we would have to do to change that, we'll copy this formula here and we'll paste it down here. But if you notice, we have 120 minus 12, and that particular function, if we want to do it after the second year, we would simply subtract 24 payments. So we've already paid 24 payments. So what's the balance of the loan after those 24 payments? And if we'll just grab this guy and pull it down here so we can put it right next to our 25th payment, and we can see here 87,089 is the balance at the beginning before we've made our 25th payment. So it all matches up. Well, what about internal rate of return? If we have cash flows, for example, we have to pay out, let's say, $20,000 in the first year, maybe that's a down payment on a house, and we are going to, by living in a house compared to renting it, we're going to, let's say we're going to save over rent, we'll save $2,000 per year for a couple years. And at the end, we're going to sell the place, and we're going to get Actually, that says 200,000. Let's make that 20,000. And at the end of that 2-year period, we're going to get our $20,000 back. Plus, let's say we got a little bit of a gain on it. Let's say that after we sell it and pay all of our real estate commissions and everything, that we are going to get our $2,000 in savings. Plus, we're going to get our $20,000 and let's say another $2,000 back. So we're going to get $22,000 back. So that means in the first year we're going to save $2,000 owning instead of renting. We're going to save another $2,000 in the second year, save another $2,000 in the third year. We're going to save that same $2,000 in the fourth year, but we're also going to sell the place, and after real estate commissions, we're going to make $22,000. Well, what's our rate of return? In Excel, to calculate an internal rate of return, we're just going to use the IRR function, and then I'm going to use the open parentheses and just highlight these values, and then close that down. And we can see here that the internal rate of return for this period is 12%. And so that's a very simple, easy function, easy way to do that. The key here is you need to make sure that that first cash flow is a negative, and these other ones are positive cash flows. Internal rate of return will give you an error if you have both positive and negative cash flows throughout your series. And if you think about this, this is the beginning, or time 0, and this is the first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. And these can either be outright cash flows, or in the case of a decision between two different options, you might look at the difference. It might be that in the situation here that renting costs $10,000 and owning only costs you $8,000. So the difference there is all we really care about, and it's a $2,000 difference. So that's how we would get these 2,000s. And obviously, if you buy a house, you got to make a down payment, and at the end you sell it, and you might make a little profit on that sale. And that's how we kind of look at it in this case. All right, well, that's just a really quick introduction to how we might look at a present value calculation to get the balance of a loan, and also how we might take a look at some cash flows to do an internal rate of return calculation. Again, these concepts are really not real estate specific, but in real estate class we'd apply the basic finance functions and calculations that you'd use in Excel or a calculator to some real estate decisions.